Oh no, I forgot my water. That's okay. We'll get through it. Welcome to the live, everybody. What a way to start off. Excuse me. Yeah, I'm getting off on the best foot possible here. All right, it must be the mustache. Okay, so today's topic we're talking about eliminating or altering obstacles, and there's some simple, um, not easy, two words are different. Simple strategies that we can implement around the way that we approach things that can really change the experience of um, coming up to obstacles, no matter what they are, fitness, life, all of those things. So we're going to talk about that. And if you're joining the live, please drop your win in the chat there. My win for the day is um, you know what? Why not? Let's make it fun. I decided to shave my beard into a mustache. It was going to be a fun kind of surprise and joke for Casey when I see her on Saturday. But it's pretty hard to kind of hide your facial features when you're on social media all the time. So she found it and laughed. But it's kind of it's starting to grow on me a little bit. My dad has always my whole life he's always had a mustache, and now that I'm getting a little bit older into my 30s, I'm getting to that age where I have such a greater appreciation for my parents than I ever did. Now that I'm in adulthood and understanding all of the things that they did for us as kids, so it's kind of like a tribute to my dad. I kind of like it. That's my win. All right. If you have a win, drop it in the chat there. I can see Casey's here watching. Shannon, win did leg out today, and I'm on this live. I love it. Fantastic. I know if you're not logged into the app or you're not watching on the app, you're watching on a browser. I don't believe that you can comment. So I know there's others of you watching. If you want to be able to comment, try opening the live up on your app. If you have a Google account of any sorts, then you can automatically sign into YouTube because it's all connected. All right, so let's start this topic off. I'm going to try not to ramble like crazy here because this is something that I get really passionate about. And it's something that I've been talking to a few people about recently. So quite a relevant thing. All right, let's get into it. So I'm going to give you a whole bunch of kind of background information to help create the story. This is kind of my typical way of explaining things anyways. I want you all to be able to understand this concept so thoroughly that it makes sense when I provide the solutions for you or the strategies that can create solutions. So the first thing that I want to go over is just our life itself. So a very broad topic. We experience life based off of our perceptions of events. Okay, so I know I've talked about this in the past, but we're going to go into a different level of it today. So based off of our previous experiences, our upbringing, our values, our morals, the things that we've learned that have become a part of who we are, we start to interpret the world through those lenses, right? Just makes sense. That's how we think. That's how we've been taught to think. And so we start to see things in that lens. And it gives us a way to interpret things that can make sense to us. But there is often times where this can get it can get in our way. And I'm going to talk about that in a second. I want to also add in that our emotions are something that we can control. Okay, so we have our perception, which is how we experience life. We have our emotions, which is what we feel based off of the perceived meaning or experience of that event. Their emotions are something that we have full control over, and there are no good or bad emotions. We often associate like good emotions and negative emotions, but there's no such thing. All emotions are equal. All emotions are neither good nor bad. They're just something that we experience. And without them, even the ones that are uncomfortable, we just wouldn't have any sort of uh, way to actually, like, happiness wouldn't exist if that was the only thing you ever felt. It would just be existence. Happiness is only there because we can label a way that we feel, because we have other ways that we feel that are so much different, and we can label those ones. And so we create this picture of understanding our emotions. So the whole ramble that I'm getting on here is these emotions are just a part of our perception. They're something that are fully within our control, or a majority of the time are in our control. We have a massive influence on them. We aren't controlled by our emotions, and our behaviors aren't dictated by the way that we feel things, or the way that we perceive things. We have all these different layers. All right. So um, that brings up kind of the last point, is our behaviors are a completely separate thing from all of these. I'm going to connect the dots here for you in a second, but our behaviors are obviously the actions that we take, and we take action often based out of how we feel, or what we think needs to happen, which can come from how we've perceived an event. But our behaviors are another thing that are completely in our control. So we have these three different layers. We've got over here, we've got perceptions. So our history and our beliefs, all of those sort of things create a lens that we see life through, and that is our perspective of life and events and circumstances. We have our emotions, which can be elicited based off of how, like, what we experience in life. So based off of the way that we perceive and experience life, we have emotions that are elicited, and from those emotions we have behaviors that we can engage in. And so we can either connect the wait where's my hands we can connect these two, the emotions and the behaviors. We can also connect it to the perception of how things are, but we can create um, blocks and changes in all of these things. They don't always have to work in conjunction together. We can use these things to our advantage, and this knowledge that we can change our perception, we can control our emotions, we get to dictate our behaviors. We have so much control over our lives that we often don't realize. All right, so this is a picture that I want to build. Okay, so the last little tidbit that I want to share about this is um, our thoughts, the way that we think. All of this stuff connects, right? But our thoughts are also subject to the external uh, things that we invite into ourselves, right? So I'm getting really, really sciencey here for you. But we have a center in our brain called the RAS, the reticular activating system, or center system. And what that RAS does is it's like your flagging system. So if you are car shopping and you're like, hey, I really like uh, Teslas, you'll start to see Teslas everywhere, because you've now given yourself instruction, and your brain, your RAS is like, Teslas, I want Teslas, I want Teslas. And every time you see one, instead of it just passing through like every other car, um, it kind of flags you and goes Tesla. All right. So um, now, no, this is getting complicated. And if you're not following, comment questions. I'm going to recap all of this really simply at the end. We start to flag our RAS, what we're looking for in life, based off of some of the things that we bring into our lives. So if you're consuming yourself with drama and self-depreciating jokes on Instagram, like those meme accounts that are really funny, but also it's like, oh man, that's terrible. When you're looking at um, you know, polarizing topics and all this stuff, and you're bringing in these more like kind of negative things, we start to create a flagging system in our RAS for more of that stuff. So I think you may know where I'm going here. We start to attract more of those things into our life. And so if we're consuming a lot of negativity, a lot of um, like depression stuff, a lot of I can't do this stuff, a lot of um, I'm a victim to my circumstances stuff. We consume all of these things. We start to create more of that narrative because now that's becoming our perspective. Our RAS is flagging us, going, "Here's another thing that lines up. Here's another thing that lines up. This is negative. This is negative," and we see it so much more, and it starts to create the perception of life that we have. Because like you've heard this said, and I don't like the context that it's often said in, but you are finding things that affirm your narrative on life, and it's simply just meaning you're finding things that fit the perspective that you're creating. So if you create this perspective that all people suck and the world's a terrible place, you'll start to see things, and you'll start to perceive them from being what you want it to be. Maybe not consciously, but subconsciously. Right. So whereas on the other hand, somebody could be looking at the exact same thing from a different angle, different perspective, and they interpret it completely differently. Okay, so recap this really quickly because this is all tying together and it's going to make sense in a second. We hold on, hold on. I want to do this in the right order. Okay, so we perceive life based off of the inputs and the experiences, the values that we have adopted through life. Okay? We then use a combination of our experiences or our perception of life to dictate the things that we look for. And so we can start to create that RAS flagging system. But if we're looking for things or we're believing things that we're seeing and being influenced by those external sources, we can start to have that work in a relationship where now we're starting to invite things into our lives that we don't want. Right? Then we have the emotions that come with that. And oftentimes people feel subject to their emotions, like their emotions control them, or you made me feel this way, or I only did that because I was mad. And we use our emotions as a way to justify our behaviors. Our behaviors are the individual decisions we decide to take based off of all the other things. And we can put a hard block there, but we can take all those things and use it as a way to justify the behavior that we exemplify. Okay, so an example would be let me think of this. This gets a little complex. So an example would be that, like, let's say I grew up very Christian. I was a pastor's son. I grew up, so there's a belief that your body is a temple and you should always take care of your body. That belief, this is just an example because this actually wasn't a part of my life. My family is not very active. I'm the only one that goes to the gym. So, anyways, just bear with me. Let's say the belief is that your body is a temple, and that came from religious beliefs and texts and whatever. And it was something that I created as a value for my life. Okay, so that became a part of my perspective, is that the body is a temple. You should take care of your body. Then I started to create the RAS flagging system to find more reasons why we should view our bodies as a temple. So I'll look at disease and illness and go, this is why. This is why, because disease and whatever exists, we should be creating, or we should be treating our bodies as a temple to make sure that we can avoid those things. We can look at it from different perspectives, or different perspectives as well as like, okay, this goes against what I've done, but you can look at it and go, you shouldn't permanently alter your body because your body is a temple. And that could create the perspective that tattoos are wrong or bad, or just not something that is a value for that individual, right? Then we have events that we can perceive through those lenses that we've created, which can elicit emotions. So let's say perhaps I believe my body's a temple. We should treat our bodies like that. We should give them healthy nutrition, all that sort of stuff. And then I see a family member going and eating McDonald's regularly. I could then see that and go, well, okay, because my perception and belief based off of the experience of my life is that we should be treating our bodies as a temple. and my RAS is activating me going, oh, hey, look, your brother's eating at McDonald's every day. That's not treating your body like a temple. I can then take that and go, what the heck is he doing? And I could get angry about it and be like, what are you doing? This is ridiculous. Like, you shouldn't be eating that crap. And that's the emotion. I can create an emotion out of that. It could be disappointment. I could be like, oh my God, I can't believe that he's doing that to himself. Like, oh, why would he put that into his body? So it depends on how I perceive things, whether I view that with or whether the emotion that gets elicited is anger or depression, anger or disappointment, and then I can choose, my behavior. I could be angry. Let's say angry is emotion. I could take that and then go, hey man, like, what are you doing? You're treating your body like crap. You're gonna die early. You should be treating your body better than that. And I could get angry with him, and that's my behavior. All right. Turn it all the way around, and let's look at things from my brother's perspective. Perhaps for him, we're gonna skip a bunch of the stuff, but let's say, he's never, nutrition wasn't a thing that he's ever learned about. He knows that McDonald's is greasy food, but doesn't really understand how bad it is for him. He just enjoys it, and food is enjoyment for him, and so and he's a very busy guy, so he likes to use that as a way to reward himself. And so when I come at him with anger, he could all of a sudden be like, whoa, like, why are you angry at me? Like, this isn't that bad. You know what I mean? Because his perspective on life is completely different than mine. And neither one of us is necessarily right or wrong in our opinions, but all of these things connect together to create our experience. All right. So how this relates to obstacles, because I know that we're 17 minutes in talking about life and perception, and basically I'm dissecting human psychology and behavior. So how this relates to obstacles is it depends on how we view things, right? Let's talk about failure, because that's something that is more than common in the work that we're doing here with your fitness, your nutrition, and everything. So let's say that your experiences and your beliefs and everything have lined you up to believe that if you are given a set number of macros and you don't hit those, you've failed. And failure is bad. And it causes you to be disappointed, upset, and disheartened. And those feelings typically lead you to behaviors where you no longer have motivation, so you don't want to do the work, or it just feels incredibly hard to try and get back on track because you already failed, and it can go even deeper to be like, I fail all the time. I'm always a failure, and I'm just repeating my patterns. What's the point? I'm giving up. You see how all of this connects, and how we can take a simple perspective shift. We can understand that emotions are just emotions, and we're going to feel them no matter what, but we don't have to act on them. And we can take behaviors and go, okay, just because I perceived it this way and I feel it this way doesn't mean I have to do this thing. It doesn't mean that I have to repeat my pattern. I can start to shift this. Okay, so and it starts from the beginning. And let's add on top of that you signaled your RAS to be looking for failure things, and you follow meme accounts where it's all self-depreciating humor about how you try so hard and this is the ball you have, and it's like this big chunky person or something, stuff like that, because that's out there and people engage in that all the time. All right, so when it comes to creating the solution to this, there's a few things that we need to do. One is we need to wire our RAS to be looking for more narrative on life and more perspectives on life that actually are going to give us the result that we want. Okay, so looking at motivational accounts, like filling your social media with, get rid of all the negative crap and start putting stuff in there about how if you just keep trying, you'll succeed. We see all those stuff. I post it all the time on my social media. That every failure is a stepping stone to success. It's just another lesson along the way, and failure isn't permanent. We look at all those things. We start to create a flagging system for our RAS that is now wired to failure is not a bad thing. Failure is not a bad thing. Failure is not a bad thing. Then our perception can start to shift. We're like, oh, okay, Like failure is just part of the process, and it provides me lessons. It provides me ways to overcome obstacles or to avoid obstacles. Um, it's an opportunity for growth. We can change our perspective on what failure means to us, despite what we've experienced and been taught in life before that, which can alter our emotion. When failure no longer becomes a terrible bad thing or something that's like a doomsday clock for you, then it removes that negative emotion of like, oh, okay, well, I'm disappointed, but I'm not crushed. I or it could even be like, I missed, but that's okay because I learned this really good lesson, and I'm excited because now that I've learned this, I can implement it tomorrow or forever, and I can start to change, and I don't have to experience that again. Which obviously, I'm talking about this. It changes your behavior. Your uh, We can use these things to work together, and so you can change your behavior. And so it's some simple little shifts like that that can completely change or eliminate the obstacles, because not all obstacles are true obstacles. Some obstacles we create. There are perception of an event that is we have decided is an obstacle or a barrier, but it doesn't have to be. Okay. Let me go through one more example, or one more strategy, and rather not an example. So I talked about the importance of filling your mind with the thoughts that you want to have, like the rather than creating a consistent input of thoughts of failure or negativity or whatever. Fill your mind with the thoughts that you actually want to experience, things that give you hope, things that give you joy, things that bring you excitement and fulfillment. Fill that into your system, because it's going to help you start to look for more of those things. That's going to change your perception. And we can also change our perception just being aware that the way that we interpret event doesn't necessarily mean that that is the way that things went. I really wanted to share this story, but I'm getting kind of long here, so I'm going to kind of make it really quick. I watched a reel the other day of a gentleman walking his dog, and he was just taking a selfie video. He talked about how he was walking on the bike path, and behind him, a biker was coming up. She rang her bell to get him to move, and he was stressed trying to get his dog to move, but his dog was being stubborn, and he was trying to get him off the trail. And she rang her bell again, and he immediately got really frustrated and was like, "Fuck this girl! Like, why is she pushing me? I'm doing the best I can. She can just chill." He didn't say anything. As he turned when she went to ride past him, she gave him a very nice smile and was like, "Thank you so much." And she was really pleasant. His realization at the end of that was she wasn't frustrated with him at all. He was self conscious about how long it was taking to get off the trail. And maybe it was a self consciousness or previous experiences where people have been mad at him, where he created a narrative in his mind that this was a negative event, and it wasn't at all. Okay, so that was his perception. We can start to change our perception when we hear things like a bell ringing behind us. When we know that in the past, we're like, oh, I perceived it as this, but it wasn't, or I perceived it as this, and it was a really bad experience for me. You can start to shift that thought and understand that, okay, I can change my perception of this. Maybe I'm hearing the bell, and maybe this person's pleasant. Maybe they thought I just didn't hear it, and so they rang it again, right? So we can change our perspective. And I encourage you to try to find different ways to perceive things. Try to look at different ways to interpret events every time you interpret something, especially if it's negative. See if there's a different way that you can interpret it. We do this every single week with our check-ins. The wins column. When you have a really crappy week and you're like, I don't think I have any wins, that column is there for those to help you change your perspective, to help you look at that week and go, even though it was a really tough week and I wasn't as good as the week before, I did all of these things, and so I still am winning. I'm still doing good things. I'm still working towards success, even though I had a dip in some other things. All right, we're changing the perspective so that week doesn't seem like a terrible, horrible write-off week, because it never is. That can change our emotions, but we can also change our emotions separate from those things. We can, when we understand that emotions aren't bad, they're just an experience. I'm experiencing this emotion right now, and I don't have to hold on to this. I don't need to root this emotional experience as my meaning, because there's a different way I could perceive it that maybe would have made me feel a different emotion. So I'm going to let go of this emotion. I'm going to do some deep breathing. I'm going to let go of the frustration, the anxiety, the sadness. I'm going to bring myself back to neutral, and then I'm going to choose my behavior. All right. So every little spot we can make a bit of a change, or we can intercept a pattern to change it, or an experience to change it, to truly eliminate or completely alter obstacles that we face. All right, that's it. Thank you for hanging in there. Know that this live was going a little bit longer, but I didn't want to leave anything out, because just having that whole picture makes it so much more powerful. Your homework from this, I don't normally give homework from calls, but your homework from this is to keep an eye on, set your RAS to flag negative stuff that you're consuming on a daily basis. Keep an eye out for accounts that you follow that might not actually be helping you. And ask Casey or I, or just look for hashtags. Find some accounts that are going to actually start to build you up and bring you to a higher or a better experience in life, more fulfillment, more motivation, more success, more don't quit, whatever it is. That's your homework for this week. Try and eliminate like 5 to 10 of those accounts, and try to add 5 to 10 on the ones that are going to help you. I promise you, if you start to like really look at those things on social media, this whole pattern is going to start to shift for you. All right. If you're watching on replay, hashtag replay, drop your win, your biggest takeaway. Everybody have a wonderful Tuesday evening, and I will talk to you again soon. I believe Casey will be here for her live on Friday. She's up in PG right now. If she can't make it, I will. All right. We'll see you then.